So we have an agenda before us, and we're going to make at least one addition. So under appointments 3.4, we're going to add a distinguished budget presentation award at 9:30. Is that correct, Mike? So we're going to do that at 9:30. Are there any other additions? Seeing none. Councillor Christie.
I'll move the agenda as amended.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. All right. So the minutes from the November 30th regular council meeting have been circulated. Are there any corrections, errors, omissions? Councillor McGee.
I move the minutes be adopted as presented.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the minutes from the November 30th meeting as presented. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously as well. Thank you. Okay, we have a number of presentations this morning, and one is supposed to be at 8:35. So we're pretty close to that. So can we jump ahead in our agenda? So we have a presentation from BCOMM, so Mr. Boody and Mr. Lammle. So I'm going to ask you if you would please to use your microphones because we are broadcasting and videoing. So if you would do that, we're going to take a moment to introduce ourselves, and then you just have to push the button and it will stay on red for you once you do that. So we'll introduce ourselves first and then allow you to do that, and then we'll go from there. Okay? So Councillor Phobes, if you'd like to start.
Carrie Phobes, Division 4.
Laura Michelle Cunningham, Division 5.
Debbie Penna, Division 2.
Ken King, Division 7.
Wade Christie, Division 6.
Faye McGee, Division 1.
And we have, of course, our CAO with us, Mike Hogan, and our keep us in line wonderful person, Carolyn. And so if you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves and then jump right into your presentation.
How's that sound? Good. Well, thanks for having us today. Sorry, I've got a cold. It is definitely not COVID. I have been tested about 17 times. I am Byrne Lammle. I'm pretty sure I know everybody here. And this is Matt Boody, son of Lloyd. And we are BCOMM. Do you have anything?
Yeah, we want to roll out what caused us to start a local internet service provider. Some of the challenges that we're facing right now, and then a bit of an ask that would help us strategically reach a couple of the areas that have a more dense population that needs better internet. So I'll start with our presentation. I've amended a couple slides from the package that you sent, just so you can kind of see the team. Obviously, Byrne and I are here today. If we can...
Presentation is...
that's fine. So Byrne and I are here today as far as the BCOMM team. Our additional... no, that's okay. I'll keep going. Byrne and I are the team. My background's in electrical engineering, as well as I was a journeyman at Burns Electric. As of 2010, I became a journeyman. And then the other back-end portion of our internet service provider is a fellow by the name of Theo. He works for Bell, previously was Axia FiberNet, and he is a network planner and has lots of experience with fiber optic cabling, and did most of the design and supervising of the FiberNet coming through our area on the engineering side. So as a group, we've been able to launch in Three Hills. This is the main reason we're going for it, is the disparity between rural connectivity and urban connectivity. Probably everybody is fairly aware of. the most latest figures show that about 40% of rural areas are underneath the government's declared mandate of 50 downlink or download speed and then the 10 upload speed. With that, there's no reliability calculated in, that's just raw, what is our bandwidth. Byrne's experience with going to customers and having poor speed and that being a regular complaint was what started us to say, you know what, let's go take this into our own hands, specifically with how his location was. When we were looking at bandwidth requirements for, say, a company that wants to come in and start a business inside of an industrial park in Kneehill County, the main item that's going to take up the bandwidth is all the video, because web browsing and email is smaller, but now with everything being remote, having the bandwidth for video is quite important. And then being able to have the infrastructure for reliability and for expansion will be important. And all the things we're seeing in the future, the bandwidth requirements for both us personally as well as businesses looking to operate are only going to increase. So we've deployed a wireless network to start to help solve that problem, focusing on more dense areas. And we're specifically starting with businesses and the county ratepayer, so farmers and that type of thing. And then our goal is to be able to expand our network as we can, starting in the dense populations and then moving outward. An immediate thought as well is what makes BCOMM unique, and you know what's wrong with what's out there currently. Currently, what's out there is exclusively large companies. Communications is a difficult solution to provide because it is extremely capital intensive, which is why even a group like ExploreNet, which I'm sure most people would be familiar with, they're an enormous company that has hundreds of towers that they supervise across the nation. So to be able to reach these places is difficult. So the three options we have to deliver signal currently are by fiber optic connection, which obviously is expensive to build based on the underground work, a fixed wireless solution, which is the route we're deploying right now because it's quick and it's feasible. It does have more maintenance issues than fiber. However, it's the best that's available to us right now. And the other one would be what is probably most often talked about in the news, which is low orbit satellite, which would be known as Starlink, which has incredible upside and really just unknown viability long term. And it's functionally outsourcing a core utility to a Houston Aerospace Group, which if it works is fantastic. And if it doesn't, a core utility is at the mercy of someone else's hand. So we want to step in and provide a tangible solution right now as a stopgap measure for whatever comes in the future, or we're there to help lay a core utility for Kneehill County. So with that being said, we're locating towers close to dense communities, so then we can deploy our mesh network, which would be able to provide faster speed than what's available currently right now, even in Three Hills, which has fiber. We would be able to implement our network quickly within counting in months as opposed to years. It's a much lower cost to achieve our results if we're using a fixed wireless network right now for, say, like towns like Torrington or Huxley. And we want to be able to provide unique benefit to both the ratepayer as well as to county operations. So if there's infrastructure that the county has that isn't connected, we want to be able to provide a resource for that within the county. I'll hand off the rest to Byrne to talk about some of the details about upcoming installations.
So if you take a look at the screen up there, we are looking at hitting both, is that Torrington? Yes, Torrington and Huxley. I think I'm led to believe that the internet in those two areas are very poor. That's what I'm led to believe. So my theory was I am one of the electrical contractors for Kneehill County. And we would really like to partner with Kneehill County on some of your booster sites. Like let's focus on Huxley right now. Huxley's really good. That hill to the east of Huxley is nice and high. We can see lots of ratepayers. And we would like, you see a tower there. The tower actually doesn't have to be a tower. It's a wooden pole that we normally see. So it doesn't look obtrusive or anything like that. So we would like to have a pole sitting right where your water reservoir is sitting up there, where then we can get from point to point from Three Hills, which is our primary fiber that we have in town here, and hit basically that point with one hop, then go into the community, probably where the bulk station is, or at the hall, or at the Ball Diamonds, somewhere in there, and then do a bit of a mesh network inside the community itself. If you can see the build out on that. Really exciting stuff. And now if we go to Torrington, so if we go to Torrington, is that Torrington up there? Yes, it is. So there are a couple routes. This is the most direct route that we can find. It would be putting a tower or a pole up. I think that's Doug Brenda's property up there, in conjunction with him, with a user agreement to hit Torrington, right? So direct line of sight is what the idea would be there. We also, do we have that other path on the older slide? Okay, that is our first route to get to Torrington. The other way around would be going to your Sunny Slope booster station, setting a 60-foot tower on that site, in my mind, of course, and then we can pick up the majority of your people out there, bounce to Keevers Lake, bounce to the landfill, come back into Torrington. That is a lot more comprehensive. Costs us a lot more money to do. Right, but it does cover a lot of your ratepayers outside there. So anyhow, here's the ask. So looks like our ask is to access county infrastructure is really what we're asking for. We're not asking for any money. We're not asking for anything like that. We're looking to plant some of our infrastructure on Kneehill County locations that are currently powered to serve the area. And obviously collaboration in the future. And right now we do have a few Kneehill County groups that are being served from our tower. Anybody within 4-mile radius. We picked up my property south of town. I bought Bob and Barb's place. We've got Larry Penner. We've got a few LFL, Busy, whatever, the Golden Acres Honey Farm. We're starting to hit people like that. What is the left of our presentation?
Yeah, I think that's the main item. We have some visibility to what's happening in other counties as well, and so we wanted to be able to start the conversation to identify ourselves as a solution when you're talking about broadband issues that ratepayers may have, or if groups are coming in and asking, what's available to us if we want to place our business within the county. We want to be able to be seen as a helpful resource, and to be able to provide some technical assistance if there's need to have a conversation about that, and to let you know that we're actively looking to build a network that services 1,000+ people within Kneehill County for high-speed internet.
As we advance, we are looking at fiber options also. Right now, the interim solution is point-to-point, but we are looking at fiber in different communities and taking it there.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Councillors have questions? Councillor Christie.
Curiosity, have you looked at any grain legs that are floating around in our community all of a sudden? There's anywhere from 100 to 120 feet.
You
There's
bet.
5 of them out my window.
Yes, absolutely. Anything would work. User agreements are really good. I think I've got about 6 people already on high spots that Matt, we've been scoping out driving Kneehill County and north, south, east, and west. And for sure, user agreements, as soon as we're looking for an area, definitely would, for sure. But I know we have 6 people right away that are ready to put a grain leg, like, customer list, right? So for sure, we are looking at that. And it's easier because most people I do know, and they're tied to my company, so then we've got a very good relationship, rapport with them.
Okay, are there any other questions? Councillor Penner.
Thanks for coming this morning, guys. Where's your tower in town here right now?
The Three Hills Water Tower.
Oh, it is on the tower.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, quite a few of us are using smaller businesses.
Yeah.
And I don't know a lot about electrical and whatnot else, but it seems like they guaranteed us not to have too many people on the tower, and I feel that they've got too many on the tower now, and it's really slowed it down.
Mm-hmm.
How would you control that, I guess, going forward? It's just, we just trust you, I guess, that you won't take on too many customers.
I think that's the benefit of being small. Right at the start, when I came up with this crazy harebrained idea with Matt, I said, most of the people that are going to sign up right away are my customers, right? And I have a very good rapport with them. And I said, we will not be fast. We will not be slow. We're not going to take on so many users that we're going to slow it down. We'll have to, we'll pay for a different fiber line to continue to ensure that there is very, very quick speed. Because that is exactly the problem, Deb, is you've seen that, everybody has seen that. Right, as the users grow, as the companies grow and users go on, your internet speed goes down. Even in Three Hills here, when kids come home from school, Netflix goes on, my internet at home goes from 150 megabits per second down to 3, and it's terrible. So that would be just more of, hey, you probably can phone Burns Electric and say, hey, dude, it's slow, what's going on? Right, where phone Eastlink or phone ExploreNet, and good luck with that.
And to speak to that, because communications requires a lot of infrastructure, and the groups that are actively holding the greatest amount of market share are national, in some cases, international companies. They're going to prioritize high density, and Alberta is not the dense portion, specifically our county. However, when you observe, you'll see every 4 to 5 years, there will be a new something that comes out from these companies, because on the routine maintenance cycle, that tower gets updated. But then you wait, and you wait, and you wait. So you don't really get customer service right now. And currently we're talking about internet coverage, right? Can we just please get something? In the future, we want to be talking about internet choice. Satellite is part of that. If that works, that will be an incredible human achievement. However, it would be nice to get our dependence away from companies that don't reside near to us, so that, right now, if we have 100 megabits per second available in this room, the network that we reside on will sell that same bandwidth at least 15 times to cover the infrastructure. That's the way the communication scheme works. So even if BCOMM was to say, let's only sell that 5 more times and we can still be profitable, because we're using local techs, we're not bringing them in from Strathmore or Calgary or Red Deer. That alone would solve some of the issues if we have too many people, and then that brings our speed down. And additionally, moving to fiber from copper, just naturally based on the characteristics of the material, manages the bandwidth without being technical. It's a great question. It's the biggest pain point for everyone, both in town or out on the farm too.
Okay, are there any other questions? Councillor Forbes.
Good morning. I'd like to say thank you for bringing this to the county, for our ratepayers. I know that I am AirNet in Olds. I hooked up with them years ago, and they said the exact same thing to me, that we're not going to put a ton of people on, and then my internet went from this to that, right? So I know you, in good theory, you want to say, hey, we do want to do that, but it may not always be feasible for you at the end of the day.
You bet.
And the other question I have is I was on my TELUS hub.
Yeah,
The service was terrible because Torrington just has terrible service, but I just hooked up through TELUS through my phone line,
yeah.
and my internet is amazing now.
Oh, good.
Like I went from 0.3 for upload to 25.
For an upload.
Yeah,
Wild.
yeah. And I went to 65 to 70, depending on how many people are on my internet in the house at one time.
Right.
And I went from 7 to 8 to 70, 65, 70.
Yeah, the new VDSL updates that TELUS is providing are excellent. And functionally what they're doing is they're swapping out the router, and it does a more effective job of providing bandwidth over copper. The only issue is it's, so long as you don't have a lot of users on it all at the same time, you're good. Once everybody gets a VDSL router, then you're back to the same limitation of your copper lines are junctioned across in so many places. And in most cases, it limits growth. Servicing the current base, it's an awesome stopgap measure for TELUS. That's what they want, because they need to keep subscribers regardless of the area. But it's a stop on future growth and expansion. And based on the younger generation's use of electronics and the requirements for businesses to work remotely and to have a video type presentation, the amount that we're going to use bandwidth as a society could potentially be double even within a 5 to 10 year period. So solving our bandwidth issues for today is important, but they have to be built for some sort of capacity tomorrow. And that's sort of where we want to throw our hat in the ring to provide a local solution, understanding that the big guys are going to have more funds. But we've been observing other counties and what they're doing and speaking with them directly. And there's some interesting developments specifically in the Red Deer County area where smaller groups are putting fiber in and able to provide the same or better service as to what the large groups are doing. But we're grateful for good stopgap measures like the VDSL router from TELUS, absolutely.
Okay, we're almost to where we need to be done for their next presentations, but Councillor Penner, go ahead.
Quick question. A few years ago, we met with a larger business, and they talked about funding from provincial and federal governments, and there were some grants from the federal governments, and of course it went to small communities. So we asked, well, elaborate on a small community. Well, of course it went to Red Deer. That's classed as a small community. So I'm just wondering, are you guys able to access any startup or help through our government from the other
The
levels?
broadband fund?
Yeah, there's a couple different options. There's the Community Futures funding, which is a possibility, as well as the broadband fund. As a point of context, one of the people that I spoke with operates a company out of Calgary and was acquiring funding for his operations in Ontario, and the Ontario provincial government provided $4 billion in broadband funding per capita. That would work out to Alberta receiving 1.2. I don't know if we would receive that same amount, but the funding that's there should be plentiful, which is the only way that you can really build out communications infrastructure because it is so capital intensive. And we're actively pursuing all of that right now.
Okay, well, thank you for coming this morning. We unfortunately have limited time to offer, and so we will be addressing your requests later in our agenda today, and I appreciate the two of you being here and presenting, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And you have a good day. We'll just take a moment to allow the presentation area to be made ready. So the next item on our agenda is another presentation, this time from Marigold Libraries. And we have Michelle Toombs with us here this morning. And so Michelle, when you are ready, we're ready for you. No rush, just, yep. Yep, you go right ahead. We'll give you the time that you need.
Click on it and it will stay on.
Okay, first, let me welcome you here, Michelle, and I'm going to ask council to introduce themselves to you, and then I'll let you introduce yourself and make your presentation. So I'll start with Councillor Phobes.
Carrie Phobes, Division 4. Nice to see you again.
Laura Michelle Cunningham, Division 5.
Debbie Penna, Division 2. I don't have any libraries in my division, other than our little house, little community one at our hall. So the donation book in and out. So, Swalwell.
Ken King, Division 7. So had to think about that.
Wade Christie, Division 6.
Good morning, Faye, Division 1.
I see you acknowledge the one person that's most important here, which is Carolyn, so. Well, we'd reflect that same sentiment. She's, and you can use the microphone that's in front of you. You just have to push the button and it'll stay on. There you go.
Is that working better?
Yes.
And you see the presentation. So I'm all set to go. So glasses on, glasses off. I'm sure glad, though, that even though I live in Calgary, I grew up in rural Alberta, Vulcan County, actually, because I'm accustomed to driving the roads. And people have this imagination about the condition of roads coming out of the city. Like they wear their tall winter boots and their heavy coats and so on. But the roads are not that bad. So I had quite an easy time actually coming here this morning. So I wanted to say thank you very much, Reeve Whitstock, councillors. It's a huge pleasure to see Faye and Carrie again. I had the pleasure of seeing them at an orientation a few weeks ago, shortly after the election. They learned a lot about Marigold, and they were one of the very first groups of people to see our new building. We had just moved in. So the new building that we are sharing with the Western Irrigation District is 32,000 square feet. They have a wing and very tall and large garages for their heavy equipment. And we have our wing, and we have a couple of garage bays as well. And we have a large sortation system. So we're now in that space, and I'm happy to report that we're about $1 million under the budget that we had set for ourselves, the cap that we had set for ourselves. So it's almost complete. There's still work that's getting done. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the elephant in the room, and that is, are libraries really necessary anymore? Do we really need them? And do we need them in the same way? And we do get asked that a lot, but then that's the question that's come up for the last 20 years. And libraries have certainly transformed and adapted a lot during that time. But I would say that there are some very significant contributions that libraries are making to communities, not just the civic discourse that we encourage, but also just the gathering of people, bringing them together. And there were two things on that list I wanted to highlight, and one of them was health and wellness. So how do libraries contribute to health and wellness? I bet you know the answer to that, Faye. And that is that there are many ways. Reliable health information, affordable recreation, healthful benefits of gathering, talking to people. There are people that actually come to the library just to talk to the staff, just to get out and feel better about themselves and their lives. And the other thing I wanted to highlight was safety. How do libraries contribute to safety? Well, it's a good environment. We provide programs for all ages. We provide opportunities to engage in community benefits, community collaborations. And I think that benefits communities as a whole as well. So you can see that there are a bunch of other things on that list. Libraries, public libraries in particular, have a couple of niches, and one of our niches is preschool education, preschool and school readiness. And that makes a huge difference when you can introduce babies and little children to books. Their studies have shown that their academic performance in schools is going to be better, their career opportunities are going to be better, and they're going to have more income as adults. So that's got to help us all. So just before I leave this slide, I want to tell you that currently Kneehill has 698 memberships. Those are 698 cards with Kneehill addresses. Now I tell you that because it's a combination of individuals and households. We don't know how many of each necessarily. I would say at least half. But it's important to think about them as households because a card can be used for many individuals in a household. So, well, yeah, and one more thing I should tell you about is that during COVID, you know, we're probably entering into another season of more COVID, but we've had success. Marigold has not had any shutdowns except for 7 weeks where we did not do deliveries at the beginning of the COVID outbreak. We have maintained all of our operations going forward. We've maintained all the supports that we would normally provide for our libraries and our residents. And we've seen a few successes along the way as well. One was an incredible uptick in the use of digital resources like ebooks, for example, 35% higher. And the other thing is that we've been able to provide services and transform our operations in ways that we probably didn't even anticipate we could do before COVID. One is Curbside Service, which has allowed us to continue to provide service to people. When we couldn't have libraries open, we were able to provide them with consistent service by them phoning in or ordering their books, and we would just deliver them to their vehicles. So it's worked out really well. And the other thing that was surprisingly successful for us is that we have Wi-Fi in all of our libraries. Marigold pays for the internet and pays for the Wi-Fi, and people would drive up and park their cars outside of the library to use the Wi-Fi system. So the map that you see in front of you is Marigold, actually. The yellow band around Calgary is where Marigold occupies. We're one of 7 regional library systems in the province. We're the 3rd largest library in Alberta after Calgary and Edmonton based on population. We serve 340,000 people. So we have 43 municipal members, and it's the municipalities that have chosen to form the collaborative that we call Marigold. That's why we exist. And we also serve 36 library boards. And we do a number of other services, which I'll get to in the next slide, which are not based inside of physical libraries. Physical libraries are really important, and we're glad that we have the 5 libraries in the Kneehill area. We have a very good and positive relationship with all of them. And while I'm talking about that, I can tell you that there are 2,911 cardholders that have addresses associated with Acme, Carbon, Linden, Three Hills, and Trochu. So in total, in this whole envelope that you call Kneehill County, we have 3,609 cardholders. So Marigold is quite a large region, 53,000 square kilometers, larger, according to Google, larger than Switzerland. We have a lot of van deliveries that we do. We have 4 vehicles on the road most days, taking materials in between libraries. No library can ever dream of having everything that every patron would want. So what Alberta has is a very strong culture of sharing amongst its 320 libraries. And Marigold participates as well. We sort 2.2 million items every year. And until we moved, which was about 2 months ago, we were sorting those 2 million items in a space that was 9 feet by 12 feet. And we were sorting for at least 40 locations. Well, Faye and Carrie got to see our biggest new wonderful thing at the Marigold headquarters, which is our sortation system. And it's huge. I'm not sure you saw it in operation. When you were there, you just saw it, sort of the layout of it. The footprint is huge. It's a very big piece of equipment. It's a conveyor belt system, and you load your books, they read the barcodes, and it just goes down the conveyor belt and then goes to the bin where it's supposed to go, and then we can just pick up the bin, put it in our trucks, and off we go. It's a great efficiency for us. So why does Marigold exist? Well, the province established library systems to elevate library services in Alberta a long time ago, in fact, about 70 years ago. Marigold was the third one to come along, and we serve public libraries. Among the 35 libraries that we serve, we also have, within that, we have 10 school-housed libraries, and with Acme and Linden, you have examples of school-housed libraries. And then you have examples of libraries that aren't in schools, like your storefront in Trochu, for example. We also have book deposits, and that's why I mentioned Torrington, because there is a book deposit that we support with materials in Torrington. And we have book lockers, and that's a new technology that we've adopted in the last couple of years, and that is not as simple as it sounds. When we say lockers, you kind of think of school lockers, right? Well, these are actually very sophisticated computers that are linked to our massive online system, which has 3.3 million items to borrow from. And it's a system that we've set up in Hazard and Bragg Creek and Airdrie. And it extends the convenience and availability of access to library materials by gathering people's requests, taking them and assigning them to a locker, and the person comes along upon notification, scans their library card, and a locker door opens, and they take out their materials. It's very, very efficient. We're just thrilled because we've opened one in Bragg Creek just a few months ago. It's been very successful. So we also serve patrons directly. Now, there's a lot of words on this screen, but basically, library systems were set up to serve libraries, like to do sort of those back of house things that if we consolidated our work and had a fewer number of people doing the same amount of people, we could save money and be more efficient. And that's definitely true. But Marigold has over the years expanded so that we're actually dealing directly with people in your county. And we do that in a number of ways. Marigold acquires all of the digital resources that are available through our websites. Marigold provides websites for all of our libraries, and Marigold, of course, and through that, we are able to deliver all of the e-resources that are available to patrons. And there's a lot, and it's growing every year, and there's many ways that you can entertain yourself and also educate yourself through those resources. We have 6 resources that deliver ebooks, for example, and another resource that has school curriculum materials, which is a great help to parents and kids and teachers. So there's probably more than I have time to describe, and that's why the little brochure that I gave to Carolyn has highlights of some of them. And that's an example of a brochure that we're happy to make printed copies if you have a way of distributing that information through your mailers or just having it on site. We'd be happy to send you multiple copies of that. It's designed for Kneehill County and the services that we would provide, including some of the ones that we have available there. Also a mail service. We have about 500 patrons who are located mostly in very remote parts of the Marigold area. You probably saw on the right-hand side of that map, there's special areas, and it's enormous, and there aren't a lot of people residing in special areas, and there are areas that aren't well served by libraries, so the mail service that we provide is helpful. We pay for the postage, both directions. And then we have the 12 book deposits like Torrington as well, located in very small communities. So how do we support nearby libraries? Well, this is really the bread and butter of the program that Marigold provides, and I think that one of the biggest things that we do that makes it possible for libraries to exist these days and to afford to exist these days is our IT and network support. And I was really interested in your previous presenter who was talking about broadband and availability, because that's really important to us too. We use the SuperNet. We provide the SuperNet and the internet service through our networks to all of our libraries. We're connected to every other library in the province. That's really important with what we call resource sharing, which is sharing those resources that are in our libraries and making sure that all Albertans have equal access. So we do a lot with IT and network support as well. We recommend what computers should be available. We source the computers. We install the computers. We put them on warranty. We pay for the software licenses. We get them all set up and ready to go and support them through the help desk functions that we have every day. The list is quite extensive, and we do that with 3 staff members. We have over 500 computers in our network. The materials and digital content are certainly the most historical thing that we have done, and probably why regional library systems were established in the first place. We buy materials. And Marigold does something that a lot of other systems don't do. We do a lot of the selection for our libraries that don't have professional staff. We do that in consultation, but it sure saves them a lot of time. And I think the results are just as good as, you know, having someone who has to do their time to select, go through the catalogs and select the materials. And then once we've sourced the materials, which we can get at a 40% discount just because of our long-standing relationship with vendors, we put them in the catalog and ship them out so that they're shelf-ready to circulate. And then there are other things as well on that list that you can see that we do. So aside from moving into our new building, which was a very big deal for us this past year and recently, another thing that we've been working on for 5 years is to update our master agreement. Every regional library system in Alberta has a master agreement. It is governed by, sorry, am I losing my voice? I think maybe. It is governed by the Libraries Act of Alberta, which is the law and which we must follow. And so our master agreement is really patterned on the requirements set out in the Libraries Act. But what it is an agreement and a contract and an opportunity for municipalities to work together to form this entity we call Marigold, to decide what kind of services will be provided, how it will be governed, and how those services will be delivered. Thank you so much, Carol. And it's not a long document. It's not really too hard to read, is it, Faye? Carrie? It's not bad. I mean, the Libraries Act is not bad either. But basically, it outlines the services that we provide. And the very last page of the Marigold Agreement is what we call Schedule C. It's a schedule which lists the annual per capita levy rates. So anyway, we've been working for 5 years to update the latest version of the draft Marigold Agreement. It didn't have too many changes, but it addressed a couple of things, one of which is the official population, which we get from the province. Previously, that population had come from municipal affairs, and now it comes from Treasury. We wanted to make it more generic, so we're just calling it the Government of Alberta. We also talked about ownership, because there was a historical time, way back in 1981 when Marigold was first established, where the materials that we acquired became the property of Marigold. They were capitalized. We don't look at collections in that way at all anymore. Collections are more ephemeral. They're more of a commodity, consumable. Lots of items in the collections only stay in the collections for a few years, like 5 years. That's as long as they have A, an appeal, B, that they're useful, that they're not, grubby. We have a report which we call the Dead and Grubby Report. And so that allows us to identify materials that haven't been well used. And if they're not well used, pretty often it's because there's something to do with the item itself that's not very appealing. And of course, we don't want outdated material, and we don't want old materials that are no longer of interest to our public. So we do selection, and then on the other side, we do deselection. It sounds harsh to anybody who loves books and feels that a book should belong to them for life, but it's really not our reality. Our reality is that our real estate is very tight, and so we need to make the shelves accessible to the public so that they can actually see what they want, and when they go and pull a book off the shelf, 3 or 4 others don't come with it. So, and displays are really important, of course. So anyway, getting back to what I started with, is that in the beginning, Marigold owned these materials, and now we don't see it that way at all. We see it as the property of the municipality or the library board. If there's a library board, as there is in all the municipalities that have libraries, the collections belong to the library board. If there is no library board, the collections default to the municipality. So, and then there were some other things that we said in the new agreement as well, cleaning up some of the language and just reinforcing the value of membership, of collaboration. So the result is that now that the board has approved the Marigold agreement, which they did at the Marigold board meeting at the end of November, it will be sent out to councils this coming season in 2022. When I say season, I think that's spring. And we will ask our councils, all of our councils, to have a good look at it, decide if they agree with it, and then if they do and they want to continue to support the Marigold Library system as a whole, to sign it. We need to have 60% of our municipalities sign the Marigold agreement, and then we'll be away to the races. And also coming up is a review of that Schedule C, which I mentioned has the levy rates. The levy rates in going into 2022 are the same as they have been for 2021 and 2020. It has not gone up. 2023 and 2024, that will require a new amendment, a new Schedule C, and the board is going to review that in January. And it will go out probably in the same document. So we moved into this new facility, and I've talked about it a little bit. This is a representation. We do have a YouTube video which shows some of the scenes, and I think it's quite a bit, it's kind of amazing actually. The fact that we were able to go into a partnership with the Western Irrigation District is kind of neat because they have expertise with water. And we know that water and information is what's going to make the world go around in the future. Well, the WID designed a water capture storm pond that will be outside of our windows. In a landscaped area, the town of Strathmore required us to plant 125 trees. And there's a little history that goes with that, but it's going to be really nice. It's going to be really pretty. We're kind of talking about a grand opening in June of this year. And we hope by then that trees will be in leaf and there might be a little bit of green grass. And the site that we're occupying was on the former site of a horticultural research test site that was operated by the provincial government, actually on land that was deeded to WID from the CPR. So it has a lovely history. And I'm almost finished, but I wanted to tell you about something that libraries do now that are really neat. And it was something that Marigold catalogers catalog, and that's what we call the library of things. Well, the library of, you typically think it's all about books and DVDs, and physical materials, still important. 90% of our circulation is with physical materials. That is something that the public really appreciates. A lot of people just love the feel of a book. And you can't debate that the picture books look great in physical format. But we're also expanding. And this is just an example of over hundreds of things, over 100 things. If you go into our online catalog, which is called TrackPack, and search Library of Things, you'll get quite a long list of things that you can place a hold on. But these items are typically borrowed by people in the community, which have those items in their collection. So Cochrane, for example, has power tools. They've made an alliance with Canadian Tire. They also circulate gardening tools and a whole bunch of other things that you see on that list. And the thing that we thought was really interesting was their Ghost Hunters kit. So, which has some technology and a journal for people who borrow to actually record what their findings were. So that's fun. It's just an example of how you have to adapt in the modern day technology and in the modern day world. So I'm pretty much at the end, but I did want to tell you a little bit more. When I do these council presentations, people are often surprised by a couple of things. And they're surprised to find out that they can find access to, or they can have access to the daily newspapers like the Calgary Herald at no charge through our e-resources, an e-resource called Press Reader, as a matter of fact, along with 7,000 other newspapers from all over the world. They're often surprised that you can borrow items at large libraries like Red Deer Public Library or Calgary Public Library using your library card. They're often surprised to find out that we have 3 million circulating items in our online catalog, and we draw those items from 180 libraries that we are part of a consortium with. It's called TRACK. And also the extent to which our website and our e-resources are available to the public. Now, a lot of the things that we provide are streamed, like music and movies and TV shows and so on. So access to good internet was just music to my ears, because people in urban areas tend to have a bit of an easier time with that than some people in the more remote areas. So I wish you great luck. As you expand your resources, it will help us as well. It will certainly help your residents and patrons. And I think that that is pretty much it. We've had, even though we've had 2 years, it feels like a long time, of COVID restraints, our circulation has actually increased. Our card holders are now over 112,000 card holders in Marigold. And our ebook use has increased 35%. So libraries are still a happening place. And we very much appreciate Kneehill's support and encouragement and involvement. And I have to say thanks to Glenn Keever, who was our trustee for 14 years. I have been the CEO for 12 years. I think he missed one meeting. And that was his anniversary, and I think his wife insisted. So anyway, we're very grateful for your support. Really looking forward to working with Faye and Carrie and working with you on the Standards and Services Committee. It's going to be fun. Thank you very much, Reeve.
Thank you, Michelle, for your presentation. We have just a couple minutes, so if there was a question, anyone had a question, I would entertain that. Councillor Cunningham?
First of all, I just want to say thanks for coming out in the snow. I appreciate that. And kudos for pivoting during the COVID, like everybody's had to do. That's awesome. Curbside pickup, so great for thinking out of the box. But I really want to thank you too for including seniors, because I used to work across the street from the Three Hills Library and just, changed, anyways. Yes, very close proximity, and it was so awesome to watch the seniors participate in the library programs and just, so I just really appreciate you putting them first too, right? So it's great for the kids, but it's so awesome for the seniors too, so thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Our pleasure.
Councillor Penner.
Just a question. I know Carbon and Linden, the town library is in the school, and, I'm sorry, Linden and Acme are in the school. Does Marigold have a relationship with Golden Hills with the other communities? Like Carbon has two libraries, the school library and the town library. Does Marigold have a relationship with Golden Hills with those libraries, or are they two separate entities?
Of the 10 schoolhouse libraries, we have some in Golden Hills, but our relationship with the school boards are through an agreement that is signed between the library board and the school division, and mostly through the province. And we are involved in that we support the infrastructure that is in schoolhouse libraries, such as the SuperNet access, and we acquire the materials, and we work with whether it's a library manager or a library employee or a school employee, we work with them really closely to provide public library services. There are standards that the province has set for schoolhouse libraries. So although we're not meeting with Golden Hills or signing an agreement directly with Golden Hills or with any other school division, we do have regular interaction with them. We have to make sure that our IT systems are compatible with their systems, for example. I don't know if I exactly answered your question.
I'm sure behind the scenes there is some, but there's two different scenarios, right, for your in-school, or what you call them, to the other one. So I'm sure there is something behind the scene by listening to what you're saying there. So
Delia just moved into a new library in a school, and apparently, by all accounts, it's really lovely. They did a ton of fundraising to make sure that that public library still had a space in that school. Their library board dealt most directly with the school board in making those arrangements. What we can do through our consultation and IT services is look at the layouts and make sure that the IT infrastructure is going to work, make sure that the SuperNet gets installed and supported, and make sure that we have all of the collection needs that they have going forward.
Okay, well, I hate to cut things short, but we have to move on to our next item. So thank you very much, Michelle, for coming and presenting on behalf of Marigold today. And we're thankful that you made it here safely, and we trust you'll do that on your way home as well. So thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity.
I'm sure based on the facial hair that no one would mistake me for Mr. Whitstock. We are missing the Reeve today, but certainly our thoughts are with him this afternoon as he has his surgery later today. So we're moving on now, and our next item on our agenda is 3.4, which is the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and I'm going to ask Mr. Hogan if you would take that item, please.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve King. Through you to the members of council, I'm pleased to formally make council aware that Kneehill County has been awarded the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Governance Finance Officers Association. So the Governance Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, is an international government finance group that provides resources, promotes best practices, establishes international standards for functions that go on within the world of municipal finance. And so each year, municipalities have the opportunity to put forward their budgets and to put forward, it's one of the awards that they do. but to get recognition from that association for meeting international best practice in budget presentation. Each year within Canada, there are a number of municipalities that receive this designation. The vast majority of them are repeat award winners. So they're municipalities that have won an award every year continuously. In a given year, there's about 4 to 7 municipalities in Canada that receive this award for the first time. I think this year there were 5. That number might change, but in that ballpark. And of those 5, Kneehill County was one of them. So that is kudos, I think, to the organization and to council that the award represents a lot of work and a lot of buy-in and a lot of dedication from our staff and from you guys as council. So the ability for our managers and supervisors to change up how they were looking at their budgets, how they were looking at putting their information forward, council's willingness and desire to produce a budget document that was more communicative, that was more informative than the budgets that the county has done in the past. And it represents an awful lot of work and dedication by our finance team who established the guidelines for the county's budget process and who ushered that process through. So there is the polished document that you see, which had input from all throughout the organization, from the managers, the supervisors, communications. There's an awful lot of back-end work that Dwar said all done by our finance team to usher that process through. And as well, as I said, a willingness and a desire from council to give the direction to make our budget document more informative for our residents. So we've put that through, and proud to say that the organization has received that award. And I believe that we have a video presentation to show to you from the Governance Finance Officers Association, followed by the presentation of a plaque and a certificate.
Okay, so I assume that's queued up and ready to go.
Greetings from the Government Finance Officers Association. I'm Chris Morrill, GFOA's Executive Director. It is my honor to recognize you for receiving the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. The purpose of this award program is to encourage and assist governments to prepare comprehensive and understandable budget documents that we believe will both improve transparency and trust in government. To earn the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, you met demanding program criteria. Such a record reflects the professionalism, commitment, and dedication of your organization's leaders and finance team. We hope that this award will serve as an example and encourage others to strive for the same high standards in their own budget documents. Therefore, it is my privilege, on behalf of the Government Finance Officers Association, to present to you this Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. Congratulations.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I think we need to acknowledge that it's through the work of our staff, particularly those who look after our finances, who've done a lot of this legwork, and we're going to recognize one in particular today, but you said you also had a plaque as well, Mr. Hogan?
Yes, so it's my pleasure. I get to be the bearer of good news, even though the major people that did the work are at the back of the room here. But there is a plaque here that we'll now present to council.
Assume I'm receiving it. Wants to move? Find the space. You might as well stay there. So the other, I guess the other item of business is to recognize probably the one individual who did the majority of the legwork on this, and that's Marika. And we certainly are very thankful for your contributions to our organization, and I have here an award for you as well. So if you'd like to come up and accept that. I know sometimes it's the directors and the managers and sort of the front end of our administration that we as council acknowledge and see most. However, we recognize that there's a lot of people in the background making those individuals look really, really good. And so Marika von Mirbach, you're one of those, and we thank you for your contributions to our organization. So thank you. Yeah, Councillor Penner.
Mike had said kudos to council for accepting the budget. I want to say kudos to all of you for putting it together. Every department, the way you bring your information to Marika or the finance department, and then the way that you guys presented it to us, and we've mentioned this numerous times from when we first came to council till now. It's so enjoyable to go through the way you present the budget. It's so easy to read. So kudos to all of you. Thank you very much.
Okay, does anyone on council feel the need for a slight break? Okay, so we're going to take probably a 15-minute recess, and then we have another presentation that starts at 10. So we're on recess. we'll move on in our agenda. And I know we're a few minutes early, but since Julie's here with Kneehill Housing and all set up and ready to go, welcome. We're glad you're here. I think you know most of our council, but I'll ask them to introduce themselves, and then if you would introduce yourself and then do your presentation. Okay, so start with Councillor Phobes.
Carrie Phobes, Division 4.
Laura Lee Michelle Cunningham, Division 5.
Debbie Fenna, Division 2.
I'm Ken King from Division 7.
Wade Christie from Division 6.
Faye McKee, Division 1.
So welcome here. Julie, just before you start, you need to push the button on your microphone because we are also streaming and recording. So if you would just push it down and leave it on. You should have a red light. There you go.
Yes.
All right.
Hello. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Julie Miller. I'm CAO of Kneehill Housing and, of course, Golden Hills Lodge here in Three Hills. I'm happy to be here to present and let you all know a little bit about the organization if you're not familiar with it. So this year, as you'll notice up on the screen, if we go back a couple, we have started to rebrand our organization. Previously, the colors were quite dark, unlively. We decided to go with new colors that were brighter, more lively, and speak more to what our organization is like. On the third slide, you'll see we have recently launched a new website in the last couple of weeks, and it really speaks to the environment within our lodge. And it is much more interactive. People can apply to our housing, apply to the lodge. They can book a tour to see either any facility we have, as well as we recently added a donate button as we are a charity, a registered charity. If you're unfamiliar with the organization, I sort of easily explain it as there are two sides to the organization. We have the lodge, which is supported by the municipalities. It has 84 suites. We also oversee housing on behalf of the government of Alberta. So we have sites, we have 3 sites here in Three Hills, a site in Trochu, Torrington, Acme, Linden, and possibly one coming on board soon. Again, when you look at our new website, and I encourage you to go through it and see, we have some of our partners listed on there. This past 2 years has obviously been very challenging for us. The pandemic has affected our organization greatly. We saw decreased vacancies in our housing. There was a lot more need for affordable housing. So both senior self-contained and family housing saw an increase in rentals. Our lodge, unfortunately, has suffered vacancies. We were full when the pandemic hit. And as time has gone on, we've had our regular turnover. We have obviously people needing to move to higher levels of care. We also unfortunately have people pass at the population we serve. Unfortunately, we're not seeing the intakes that we normally would. And so our goal for the next upcoming year, as well as our partner, ASHA, our partnership with ASHA, their goal is reputation rebuild. It's help educating everyone about the differences of housing. We often get lumped into long-term care, and as most of you would know, especially early in the pandemic, there was a lot of negative media surrounding long-term care. And so part of our goal is to educate people on the differences between lodge and long-term care. Living in a lodge is much more independent. You're functionally independent to live there. We only provide services. So food, housekeeping, laundry, and activities. There is a fear of living in congregate living right now, and we hope as time goes on and the more education that goes out there, we will see a decrease. And we are slowly seeing that come back. We have 4 new residents moving in to the lodge this month, and hope by next summer that we're back to normal levels. Now, I don't think any of us could have imagined that 2 years now we would have expected that we would still be going through this. I think when it first started, we thought it would be a month and we would ride it out. But But we are very positive about the things that are taking place, and we are in no different spot than other rural lodges. There's a lot of new and exciting things coming out of Bill 78, if you've had a chance to look at that yet, that's put out by the Government of Alberta. And there's a strong focus on rural lodges and opportunities for us. So it's very exciting that there's going to be a lot of positive opportunity coming, both through the ability to be flexible in how we offer services, as well as their goal is for rural lodges to become community hubs. And so that will create a lot of opportunity for us. The next slide is just an organizational chart. I report to a board of directors, which I'm happy to meet 2 new directors today. And so we have representatives from 2 from Kneehill County, 2 from the town of Three Hills, 1 from Trochu, 1 from Acme, 1 from Linden, 1 from Carbon that sit on our board. And one of the questions we get asked often is how we are funded. So with the lodge program itself, we have revenue through rental and services that we provide to our seniors. We requisition the municipalities, and we're very grateful for the monies that we do receive. We also have access to grants. So the Lodge Assistant Program helps us subsidize anyone who is lower income and is a senior, as well as we have different grant programs that we can apply to for upgrades and repairs. Our housing side, we are really, our housing management body just oversees those properties on behalf of the Government of Alberta. There is no cost to the organization or the communities here. The revenue is generated through the rent that we bring in. We are given a budget by the Government of Alberta at the start of each year, and often it's a deficit budget, but we have been fortunate to have, as I said, our rent has, our vacancies have decreased, and we have seen a surplus the last few years. And we've been fortunate to be able to use that to spend on the properties. We've been able to retain that. We also each year do capital maintenance requests to the government for upgrades to those properties. And a very valuable partner to us is ASHA. I would encourage board members to go onto their site. They have been invaluable to us over the last 2 years. They have really brought everyone together as a community of operators, and you definitely, it's been a support for all of us through the pandemic, and prior to that as well. They advocate for us, they create best practices, but especially this last couple of years, it has been nice to know that we're all in the same boat and we are all facing the same challenges and working together to come out of it. So I encourage any of the board members to check out their website. They also have a great forum. If you're one of our board members, I can get you a passcode to go on there and see what's discussed. There's great information that comes out of there regularly. And our goals. So as I said, we've rebranded. We've launched a new website that is going to make it a lot easier for people to tour and learn about our organization and apply with us. We have recently purchased some advertising that we are going to do locally in the area, and educating the public on the different types of housing that we have, the differences between senior self-contained, lodges, and then long-term care. Training and development, that's something that we are always working on. So looking at our staff and especially specialized positions and what extra training we can get them. And then looking forward to Bill 78, which we've had several meetings over the last month. It's a lot of information in there. There are a lot of changes coming to it. But again, it seems very positive for us. It has a lot in the bill. There is a lot of talk about where housing is headed in the future and what the plans are for the buildings that the government currently owns. And so, again, very excited to see what the next few years holds for the organization and this area. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, well, first, thank you, Julie, for your presentation and being here on behalf of Kneehill Housing. We appreciate that. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Cunningham.
Hi, thanks for coming. I just want to say you guys have done a really great job with the lodge.
Thank you.
I follow them on Facebook, and I go back to years ago when my great grandma was in there, and it was lovely. But just to see the changes and how you're trying to keep up with the times, you know, I think of my mom, and she'll want internet, and she'll want yoga classes and all that. So it's really great to see you. Got lots of new ideas. With the flower planting and the gingerbread houses, and I just look at it and think, I want to come there and have some fun. So it just looks like a really great place. And the cruise that you did in the summer, we brought our old car, and I just thought that was an excellent idea. And yeah, I was able to go to the tree lighting the other night, and that was really
great.
nice. So it's really awesome to see that when you drive by at night. So yeah, thanks.
And that's our goal. Is we've said the needs of a senior 20 or 30 years ago are different than what our seniors now need. We find that people are a lot younger at 70 or 80 or even 100. And what their desires and their needs are very, very different than they were years ago. And we have to be able to change with those times. And our goal is to create, our mission statement is to provide outstanding services that promote independence and respect dignity, preserve their dignity, and that's if we're using that as our mission to guide us. So,
Councillor McGee.
I just want to say, as my experience of coming off of your board, I am very, very pleased, and I hope the community can see that since you've joined forces here with us, you have brought best practices forward a very long ways in the time that you've been here. And so personally, I would like to say thank you for the work you've done to guide all those agencies to be way better at what we do. And I think it's a very needed project that we have. Kneehill housing is extremely important to our people. And I really appreciate the forward way you've taken care of it.
thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you here with a smile on your face after
Yes.
almost 2 years of COVID. And it's good to see the changes that are happening there and to see the efforts that are being made, not only to look after our seniors in terms of their health, but in terms of their mental well-being and their interaction with community. So
Great.
thank you. On behalf of council, we appreciate you being here today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're going to move on in our agenda. And next in our agenda would be 5.1.1, subdivision extension for KNE 200148. And Ms. Brandy Hay Morgan is here this morning, joining with us. So Brandy, when you're ready.
Finally my turn. Anyways, just to bring to
Oh, ouch. You had your mic on, by the way.
I know, you guys are very popular today. Anyways, sorry, to bring to your attention, just the numbers at the top of the report are incorrect for the file number. The numbers throughout the report are the correct number. So we're dealing with KNE 210154. This is for the subdivision relating to the Northwest 1930-23 west of the 4th, plan number 9710820, lot 1. Landowners are given a year from the date of approval to meet all the conditions on their subdivision. So sometimes they need a little more time, and with this file in particular, there's some main reasons that the applicant requires the extension. They're having trouble getting a contractor to come in and put in the current septic system that they need to change. It's been difficult for the applicants to secure a contractor, and due to the short construction window in Alberta, they've asked for an extension. So their year doesn't come up until February 25th. So 2022, but we would give it to them February 25th, 2023. So that's what we're asking for today, is that the council grant a 1-year extension to KNE 210154 until February 25th, 2023.
So are there any questions for the planning department? Councillor Cunningham.
So Brandy, I was just wondering, so was it, like, what was the amount of land, like, what were they actually subdividing?
So with this file in particular, it was a boundary adjustment. There was
Okay.
already an existing one out. The septic system back in 97 when they did the subdivision, their septic wasn't on their land. So part of a subdivision is you have to keep all of your items on your land, including septic. So when they came in to do their boundary adjustment, we realized that their septic is actually going, they own the whole quarter section, however, their septic is going off, and so we need to address that.
Okay.
So that's the change, and unfortunately, they really struggled to find a contractor this summer, so they need another year.
Okay, so any other questions? If not, what's the wish of council? Councillor McGee.
I move that we approve the one-year extension to Kneehill 210154 until February 25th of 23.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we have a motion before council. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Penner.
I have nothing against this one. It is a legitimate problem. There are people in the past or plumbers in the past that were able to do this kind of work, but with the new standards and whatnot else, not all of them are up to that. So yeah, there is a shortage of contractors who are able to do this kind of work.
All right, any other discussion? If not, I'm going to ask the question. All those in favor? That's carried unanimous. And thank you, Brandy, for your we appreciate your promptness. Thank you. She's in a holiday mood. So we'll move on in our agenda then to item 6.1, 2022 interim operating budget. And Mr. McKinnon, welcome. And anytime you're ready.
Through the chair, this item was discussed at the committee of the whole on December 7th. It's a procedural issue required under the MJA that councils must adopt an interim budget if the annual budget isn't approved prior to January 1st of the new fiscal year, which is January 1st, 2022. That being said, the purpose of the report is to give administration expenditure authority. So I outlined at the committee of the whole, there are no new budgetary items included in the interim budget. Those will all be dealt with during the 2022 budget deliberations. So that being said, I'd just like to make one amendment, and on the table, attachment 1, in your package, if you could flip under the expense column, substitute agriculture, that should be economic development, and economic development should be read as agriculture. Right. Just switch the names, yes. So that will be reflected in the approval if council does approve this today. But again, there was a little transposition error on my part. That being said, if be pleased to answer any questions.
So we're not having an increased focus on economic development based on the budget.
Certain staff got very excited when they seen it.
Somebody was happy and someone was sad. So are there any questions from council? Councillor Penner.
Just to clarify, this budget shows no new or one-time projects, correct?
That's correct. So any new initiatives have not been included here until council deals with them during the budget deliberations. Conversely, any non-recurring projects are also excluded. So if there were special items in 221 budget, they will not appear in this interim budget.
So the understanding that we have, based on what you've told us, is this is to allow us to keep operating through the beginning of the new year until we approve the actual 2022 full budget, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So are we clear on what we're doing? Okay, what is the wish of council? Councillor Oh, Christie.
I'll make the motion to approve the 2022 interim operating budget as detailed in Appendix 1
As amended?
as amended.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the 2022 interim operating budget as amended and detailed in Appendix 1. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. So then we'll move on to 6.2, short-term borrowing bylaw, number 1842. And Mr. McKinnon, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, through the chair. Again, at the committee of the whole, did recommend the council that council give first reading to bylaw 1842, which is the short-term borrowing bylaw for the municipality. It's best practice across all municipalities in the province to approve an interim borrowing bylaw. The history of the county is the county has always approved the authority, but has never drawn on the short-term borrowing bylaw in the past. And it's not predicated to draw on the bylaw that's before you, but this is a contingency. If it is required, we would have access to funds from our financial institution to pay bills in the event that we did not have money in the account. The only reason that would occur if we went very aggressively in our investment program. There may be gaps. That isn't predicated. From an administrative perspective, we have targeted a $5 million cash balance in our account at any given time, and the excess is put into higher yielding accounts for the duration of periods that we can do that. So for all intents and purposes, it's a contingency. It is required to be adopted by bylaw, but it does provide protection if the municipality was required to do any type of short-term borrowing. As I indicated, that is not anticipated given the cash flow modeling administration has undertaken.
Okay, so this is something that we do on a regular basis every year. It's part of our prudent financial planning, puts us in a place where if something unforeseen was to happen, we do have a bylaw in place, and so we're able to move forward. Are there any questions from council regarding the short-term borrowing bylaw? We're clear on what we're doing? Okay. Well, we're letting you off kind of easy today. Councillor McGee.
I move that we give first reading to bylaw 1842, that being a bylaw to authorize the short-term borrowings of funds from time to time as may be necessary to meet the financial obligations of Kneehill County.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councillor McGee to give first reading to bylaw 1842. We all understand where we're at. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Councillor Christie.
I'll give second reading to bylaw 1842.
So Councillor Christie has made the motion that we give second reading to bylaw 1842. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Councillor McGee.
I move that we give council unanimous consent for third reading of bylaw 1842.
Okay, so in order to do third reading, we'd need unanimous consent for this motion, and that council would give consent to hold third reading to bylaw 1842. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. So there'd be one other motion that we'd require then. Councillor Phobes.
I move that council give third reading to bylaw 1842.
Okay, so Councillor Phobes has made the motion that we give third reading to bylaw 1842. All those in favor? And that is also carried unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. McKinnon. So we're going to move on to item 6.3, 2234873 Alberta Ltd, a tax agreement. And we have Mrs. Caroline Severson with us today. Caroline, welcome.
Good
And
morning.
when you're ready.
So Bill spent all the money, I'm going to collect it for him.
Well, that's why you're so popular here.
Well, maybe here, but not out there.
Here, you're good.
So I have an RFD requesting approval on another tax agreement with an oil company that is struggling with their cash flow. After I did this RFD, I have spoken to the company and they've actually paid their arrears. So the only thing that's outstanding is the 2021 levy.
Oh, wow. Good.
So it shortens up the time. He wants to pay $5,000 a month to get that paid. So the numbers change a bit. So the amount owing is $23,744 and change. So that's where we're sitting at with this one. It's a new company in the county. The majority of the assets they purchased were in Red Deer County. And so when I called him, because I received the change directly from the receiver, he was surprised. He didn't realize there were some right on the edge that just were into Kneehill County. So we've had quite a few discussions, very nice gentleman, and you know, hopefully this will work out for him and he can move forward and do well. So I'm just here to request approval to enter into a tax agreement with this company for the payment of their 2021 taxes with no penalties over about a 4-month period.
So, sorry, time period again, I'm sorry.
About 4 months.
4 months?
Yeah.
So do you want us to specify 4 months, or would you like us to?
I would suggest just leave it
Just,
as approval of the tax agreement with no penalties,
Okay, so.
just in case.
Payment of his 2021 taxes with no penalties to be assessed.
If that's agreeable.
That's okay with council? Okay. So we're going to amend that motion, is what I'm hearing, based on the request of our property tax officer. So what are the wishes of council? Nobody wants to word that motion. So
I think if you just take out of tax arrears and just leave it as 2021 taxes, and then just the time period out.
So basically, that council agree to entering into a tax agreement with the numbered company for the payment of the 2021 taxes and no penalties to be assessed. Sound about right?
I think that should work.
Does that look like what we're talking about?
Should there be a time frame of some kind, the 6-month wording be in there? Or what do you think?
That would be in the,
Okay.
is the time frame in the agreement, Caroline?
Yes, it is. We do have a schedule of payments on there, but Bill suggested that we just put up for a period of up to 6 months.
Okay. For a period
Or
of,
over a period of up to 6 months.
up to 6 months?
Or maximum of 6 months.
Okay.
No, that should work.
So does that read like what our intent is?
That falls into what we've been doing with the other companies. Oh, that, yeah, that word's better.
Councillor Penner.
So I'll make the motion that council move to agree to enter into a tax agreement with 2234873 Alberta Ltd for the payment of the 2021 taxes and no penalties be assessed for a period of up to 6 months.
Okay, we all understand the intent of the motion. That we're going to enter into a tax agreement. They're going to be paid in full, 21 taxes by no longer than 6 months from now. Okay, any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. So, Caroline, thank you for the work that you do in the background there. Working with these companies to bring them current, it is appreciated. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a Merry Christmas.
And you. And thank you, Mr. McKinnon, not to neglect you either, but the work that you do is also appreciated. All the good work that we see here has to be coached and helped by somebody in the management for sure. All right, we're moving on to 8.1. Just before I do that, anybody need a break at all? No? We're good? Okay, so 8.1, Rural Community Hall Policy 15-13. And Mrs. Vanderquill, you're taking this one, I assume?
Sure, I can take this one. So at the December 17th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting, this was presented to Council, and at that time they had provided a motion to recommend to Council for the 2022 budget year to provide halls the same level of funding under Policy 1513 that was provided in 2020 as a way of helping those rural halls remain viable. Just a little bit of background information that our rural hall policy states that we pay them by how many times they're rented out per year, but due to COVID, they haven't been able to rent them out as much as they are used to, so their funding levels would have gone down in 2022 if we don't provide them with this motion.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? We understand what we're doing. We're basically maintaining community hall funding at the 2020 levels. So what is the wish of council? Councillor Forbes.
I will make a motion that council approve the rural community halls retain their 2020 funding classification under Policy 15-13 Rural Community Halls for the 2020-22 budget year.
Thank you. It's quite a mouthful. Any questions or further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. All right, moving on to 8.2, grant funding surplus. Mr. Hogan?
Thank you, Deputy Reeve King. Through you to Council. The item before you is an item that Council discussed at your last Committee of the Whole meeting. As we outlined at that meeting, Council has a number of grants through policies that you use to give money to different groups for different purposes, whether that's recreation, whether that's hosting events, and whether that's youth scholarships, things of that nature. As we come to the end of the year here, there's a large amount of that grant funding that is approved in budget, but has yet been unexpended for a number of reasons. One is some of the applications we received are not eligible under the policies, but we're also receiving far fewer applications, likely as a result of the pandemic. There's just less of those events going on, less of those opportunities. When in looking at this, what's been proposed is that the county offer a one-time grant to its community halls. This would be a one-time grant to help those community halls with some of their costs related to, maybe not specifically related to COVID, but to help them get through that, as they as well have seen decreased hall rentals. In many of the cases, you still have to heat the hall, you still have to maintain the hall, but we're seeing that a lot of them are not getting the rental revenues that they normally have in order to pay those bills. And so what is being proposed and what was discussed by council is using some of the unexpended grant monies that you already have approved within budget to offer a one-time grant to our community halls. The proposal being that halls classified as level A receive one-time funding of $5,000, and halls classified as level C receive one-time funding of $1,650. And the ratios between the two are roughly the same as what's contained within Council's Policy 15-13. So it's not, the math doesn't quite work out exactly, but we've done a bit of rounding there to with the numbers. And if that is amenable to council, then we'd be looking for a motion that council approve that grant funding to the halls at the level specified, and that it be funded from the 2021 operating budget.
Okay, again, we've had some conversation about this, of course, at our committee of the whole, and we all recognize the role that our community halls play in our community and the vital importance that they are to all of us. So this is one way of county council saying to these community halls, we value you. We're providing a one-time funding to help you with some of the expenses that you're incurring that you don't have income for, and we're trying to give them a hand up. So any questions or comments from council? Councillor Phobes.
I know we covered this before, but in case anyone is watching right now, the rest of the funds that are not being used out of the 58,000, can you just remind them where that's going?
Any funding that's left over at the end of the year contributes towards the, well, hopefully it contributes towards a surplus by the municipality. If at that point council determines where that funding will be utilized, if that will be transferred into a reserve, is the most likely course of action.
Councillor McGee.
I'm a very liberal reader, so we have funding for level A and for level C, but we don't have for B, and I'm assuming level A meant A and B. So
There's
if I,
no B halls. There are no
oh, we don't have any in that
halls.
level. Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, what is the wish of council? Councillor Phobes.
I will
sorry,
make a-
just 1 minute. Mr. Hogan, you had another comment?
Just one item regarding this program is it is one-time funding, and administration just wants to confirm with council that we would be, upon approval, we would be sending this money out for the halls. They would have to account for how they utilized it, but we would be doing it on the approach that we are sending the money out and asking for it to be accounted for as part of the normal accounting process that the halls do, that we're not requiring the halls to have a specific program prior to receiving the money. So it's just a question of timing.
Okay, that's the understanding of council. I think that's correct. I think the intent of our original discussion was that we would want them to be accountable for the funding, just in terms of saying it's been expended and here's how. And we weren't going to hold their feet to the fire to say you have to have a project first, because a lot of them are incurring expenses on an ongoing basis that they don't have funding for. So,
and that was our belief as well. I just wanted to confirm that prior to the program being approved.
okay. All right, Councillor Phobes, sorry.
I make a motion that council approves a one-time COVID relief grant to the rural community halls listed in policy 15-3 at the following levels. Level A funding at $5,000, level C funding at $1,650, and to be funded from the 2021 operating budget.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion to approve one-time COVID relief grant funding to rural community halls listed in our policy 15-13 as per the motion that's been made. So any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously as well. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to 8.3, Subdivision and Development Appeal Board, Member at Large. And Mr. Hogan, when you're ready.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Reeve King, to Council. The motion before you is that Council move to appoint Lori Campion, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, as Member at Large to the Subdivision Development Appeal Board for a one-year term. So normally Council does its appointments at the yearly organizational meeting held in October. However, there are times throughout the year when we receive additional applications to fill vacancies, whether those vacancies are long-standing or have recently occurred. In this instance here, we do have an applicant that is willing and asking to be appointed to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board, and administration is recommending that Council make that appointment.
Okay, any questions, comments from Council? Okay, Councillor Cunningham.
I'd make the motion to appoint Laurie Campion as Member at Large to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board for a one-year term.
Okay, thank you. Our understanding is that there's some training that will be involved, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comment? Councillor Penner.
Just a comment on the RFD, at the Member of Large, Bill Zen's Days, he's got an extra name. Is that correct, Carolyn, on the RFD? Bill
Zenz.
Bill Zen's.
Yeah, Bill Zenz was appointed at the last organizational meeting as a member at large.
Just on your RFD, he just has another name, so an extra.
Oh,
Sorry.
shoot, yes, okay, sorry. See, I still don't see it.
Carolyn was having a Zen day that day. All right, so we have a motion in front of us to appoint Lori Campion as a Member at Large. We all understand what we're doing. If there are no further questions, I'll ask the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. And 8.4, the next item on our agenda, Town of Three Hills ACP Grant Partnership. And Mr. Hogan.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Reeve King. The item that's before you is a request that we've received from the Town of Three Hills, and they are looking for partners in order to make a grant application to the Alberta Community Partnership Program. So there are a number of streams under this program that municipalities can apply for. The town is looking to apply for a water model of their distribution system. It's a little bit more complex than that, but what it boils down to is essentially gathering a bunch of information and doing some digital modeling of their water system. This would include, of course, a couple of county systems, given that some of our systems like Equity and Mount Vernon are fed from the Town of Three Hills. So there is benefit to the county in amassing some of that information as well. However, a very large portion of this is the county looking to assist one of its municipal neighbors in order to access some government funding to do a needed project. So while the main majority of benefit of this is definitely to the town, there is some benefit to the county, and we are suggesting that the county support this in order to help the town facilitate that grant application to do some modeling for their distribution system, which, as I said before, does feed more than one of the county systems, as well as the town of Choshu is also fed from the Three Hills distribution system. So there are a number of regional benefits to being able to conduct that program. Under this, the town would be the managing partner. So that means that they would be responsible for delivering the program, for accounting for the grant, and for doing all the application and that work associated with it. So really, this is an item where we put our name on it in order to help facilitate it. We do receive some benefit there, but it doesn't require a whole lot from us.
Okay, thank you. So here's a chance for us to partner with a partner with no cost. So gain some brownie points and assist a fellow community to move forward in a grant application. So questions or comments by council? If there are no questions or comments, what's the wish of council? Councillor McGee.
I think this is a very important partnership, especially since it doesn't have us engaging all that hard, a very hard engagement. So I move that Kneehill County partner with the town of Three Hills for water modeling study and provide a letter in support of the Alberta Community Partnership Grant application.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McGee. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, ask the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're all good. We can continue on. Good. All right, so next item on our council agenda would be disposition of delegation and public hearing business. And the first one would be 9.1, the BCOMM presentation. And Mr. Hogan, please.
The item that's before you is just some background on the county's current tower system. I know in the presentation from BCOMM there were other asks in or other suggestions in that regarding the utilization of space. It did appear in terms of utilizing the sites for electrical. I don't know if the full-on ask was that the county would essentially pay that electricity bill as part of that partnership. I think there's some more details here that would need to be developed. So my thoughts from administration are that we have and I see the recommended motion has been cut off there for some reason, but essentially that our recommended motion is that council accept this for information at this time. As we go through, there's a lot of work that the county needs to do regarding broadband. I think you'll see some of that in the budget discussion. There are some things going on in Red Deer County, which were referenced in the presentation this morning, which we've been invited to look at as well. So I think there's some opportunity here, but there's also some philosophies that council may wish to have some further discussion around regarding whether if you're opening an opportunity to one company or if the opportunities you're going to be would be open to every company, as an example. So there are some challenges to this. There are some opportunities, but it's probably something that can be explored more administratively and would require some additional discussion from council on your philosophies. And as I said, I think during the upcoming budget discussions that there'll be more on the overall broadband topic.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? So my understanding is that we really don't even know ourselves yet in terms of capability of our towers, and we need to do some work once we remove some of our own infrastructure. So in terms of loaning or having space available, we aren't even sure whether we do or not, correct?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Reeve King, we do know that at the current time, our towers don't have capacity. So moving forward on something today regarding our towers is not possible. Over the upcoming year, there's definitely discussion there that council needs to have about the future of that tower system. As council's aware from previous reports, a number of those towers are requiring some significant maintenance that comes with a cost. Whether that cost will be worth it for the county to incur or not can in large part depend on what the county's future vision for broadband is. If that's going to be utilized partially as a backbone or if there's other options and those towers aren't needed, but all of that has yet to be worked through.
Okay. So our understanding is we need a lot more information.
Yeah.
Okay. So
again,
any questions, comments? If not, what is the wish of council? Councillor Penner.
Just a discussion point here. By what I heard, wasn't necessarily that they wanted to use our towers. They would like to put up their own freestanding one at some of our locations. Just it's kind of a two-piece this RFD here. So did I hear that correctly? Like they want to use some of they would install some of their own, just for discussion later on, but as well as possibly, if available space, they would use some of ours.
Mr. Hogan?
Through you, Deputy, to respond to Councillor Penner, I believe that was part of the ask that they made in front of you today. That is one of those items that administration can follow up on and ascertain exactly what it is they're looking at, and then have a recommendation around the feasibility of that at some of our sites.
Councillor Penner?
So by accepting this for information today, it still leaves the door open to do more work behind the scene?
We could put forward a request to administration. I think they understand that's what we're asking for, but we could put forward, your motion could state that we accept the presentation for information and request administration come back at some future date with more information, if that's the wish of council. Like if you're feeling like we need more information with regard to BCCOM, then almost receiving it for information, almost deep sixes it in some ways. So
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily end it, but the motion that's being put on there right now, in terms of additional information, would suffice. We'd be able to use that to follow up, to get a more detailed presentation. You know, as an example around that electrification piece, is we have power running to those sites. I don't think it was suggested that the county would pay that power bill, but again, it never came out either way. So there's some stuff there that we'd want to. I know what administration's recommendation would be on that, because I don't see us paying for power for everybody. However, I'm not sure that was their ask. So again, there's follow-up we can do there, and I think the motion suffices to do that.
okay. Councillor Penner?
So I'll make
I just want to add a comment to that, to be clear, that we want a thorough information so that we're not looking only at the BCOMM component of it, but all options, just so that's clearly understood. I wanted to say that. I think we knew that, but just.
I think it's incumbent on us as a council to make sure we cover all the bases. And I'm pretty sure that's in administration's intent as well, so. Okay, so we're clear with the intent of the motion. Any further discussion? None? Okay, I'll ask the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to 9.2, the Marigold Library Delegation. And Mr. Hogan, if you would, please.
To the members of council, the Marigold Library was here to provide you with a presentation to foster council's awareness and understanding of their regional system and what they do, who they are. And with that, there are no follow-up actions that we're recommending. And so the formal recommendation is that council receive for information the Marigold Library presentation.
Okay, what's the wish of council? Councillor Cunningham.
I'll make a motion that council receive for information the Marigold Library presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 9.3, the Kneehill Housing Delegation. And again, Mr. Hogan, if you would, please.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Reeve King, to council. This item, similar to the last one, the presentation was provided to council for your awareness and understanding of one of their regional bodies in the area, in terms of understanding their operations and gaining some familiarity with with Kneehill Housing. And so the formal recommendation is that council receive for information the Kneehill Housing presentation.
Okay, if there are any comments or questions, if not, what's council's wishes? Councillor McGee.
I move to receive the Kneehill Housing presentation as information.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion to receive the Kneehill Housing presentation for information. Any further comment? If not, those in favor? And that's carried unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda would be council and committee reports. And we have first off Central Alberta Economic Partnership. Councillor McGee.
Thank you. First off, I just want to say that we call this cape, which I just love because it makes me feel like we must all have superhero capes.
Superheroes.
Yeah, so just to keep that light. So when you say, I tend to say CAPE more than I say the long Central Alberta Economic Development Partnership, just so you know what I'm talking about when I say that. So I was really appreciative of the administration here. They made sure our miles were well utilized. We had a meeting first that was just for all the new directors for our orientation, which included history, projects, grants, all those types of things. And then we had an organizational meeting, and then we had a board meeting. So we made good use of the miles into Red Deer County for this meeting. We elected the executive, and for the first time we have a business representative as opposed to a municipal representative as chair, James Carpenter from the town of Olds. The vice chair is Chief Leonard Standing on the Road from Montana First Nation. Our treasurer is Jim Wood from Red Deer County, the mayor of Red Deer County. Our secretary is Megan Hansen, mayor of Sylvan Lake, and director at large is Mike Yargo, mayor of Penhold. So we have a really, really great bunch. They also had some committees, H&R and governance, and and also task force and broadband task force. So I am the one on the broadband task force. So today's presentations were very helpful, and I will be quite excited to be part of that. And the one other one was transportation and logistics. Very keen bunch of people. So it was great to see everyone get on the committees, and we had a lot of actually votes for positions as well that we had to so we surprised the administration. They didn't have enough paper available for how often we voted, so it was quite fun. Good to see. We also set all the meeting dates for the year. Our general meetings are just 4 times a year, but we will be still setting the task force meetings, so I'll have to get back to you on how that applies to me because they haven't set those meetings yet. Then at the regular board of directors, we just took care of some pretty basic stuff, and administration told us about their value at being RMA and at AUMA, and as well as they really appreciated the FGM, or the fall general meeting, and found that that was very helpful and successful, even though it was still only by Zoom. They were really pleased with the outcome. And then the last thing is they will fund up to 6 directors to go to their conference. And again, such a keen bunch. I didn't get my hand up fast enough. But I really think this would be really valuable, as I'm really challenging my knowledge base here. And so I'm hoping to ask council to consider sending me to the conference in April. If that, and that's the end of my report.
It's an unusual committee where you get more people volunteering for the positions than there are positions. Oftentimes you sit there and you look around the room and every hand is down and everyone's looking at the desk, and so it's nice to hear that the people that are there are excited about what's happening.
I agree. Mayor Don Wood said he has never seen so much enthusiasm in this group. And he himself, he said it was this group that had him decide to stay into municipal government because he's just so excited about the directions we're headed. So
good.
I thought that was really, really good to hear.
And of course, we just want you to know that the real superhero that wears the cape is Jacqueline, our Economic Development Officer, so.
I would agree with you. I would really agree. I just get to, ride along.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Councillor McGee, for that report. And the second report was Community Futures Wildrose. And Councillor Christie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
There's a 3-page report on the back of what Community Futures did for the year. Our office is still getting chastised a little bit because our losses are too low. We're about 3%, and they want Community Futures to be in the 7% because we're high-risk venture loans. Part of that is the qualified staff that we have are doing a really good job of people that are in trouble where they take them by the hand and say, this is what you got to do. One of the comments was made on the RRF loans. CRA was going to look after the collection. They're now downloading that back to the Community Futures offices without much teeth in them. So if they pay back their loan by December 2022 or January 1st, 2023, they get out of the 60,000, they get 20,000 back, or they are forgiven. So all of a sudden now we get the fine job to say, are you paying, are you not? Some have already started to pay. Some are saying, holy cow, how do I do that? And I don't know what the repercussions after 6 months of collection in 2023 will go. So all of a sudden it's downloaded a whole bunch of work that they didn't see coming. And they've also been advised that there'll be some more amendments to those loans before they mature. So it puts us way out there.
Seems amazing to me that you'd be getting your hand slapped for not having enough default.
From a very talented staff. And my comment back to WD is that our office needs more help. With the amount of work that they did with RRF, we're doing it with 3 people, and there should be some interns or something there for succession planning or something. So I don't know if Jacqueline's got any comments on that or not, but.
Yeah. Jacqueline agrees with you. They need to have some succession planning. Yeah. Yeah. It's an amazing organization doing really good work, and very successfully. So.
That goes right back to the staff that they have that are really, really dedicated. My concern long-term is they're gonna burn themselves out with the stress that they're taking on personally. And how do you disconnect yourself from customers you're working hand in hand with? And then some of them aren't gonna make it, as we just talked about. But at the same time, the success that they have is very, very positive, so.
Yeah. Good, excellent reports. Thank you. So, what's the wish of council? Councillor Christie.
I'll move the council and committee reports as information.
Okay. So Councillor Christie has moved that we receive the committee reports as information. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. The last thing that we have would be the council follow-up action list. And Mr. Hogan, do you have any comment?
Microphone, through you, Deputy Reeve King. If there are any questions regarding the council follow-up action item list, administration can address them. I do have one small update that I can make, is we are proceeding with the, and I'll look at the motion number, with the gravel sale regarding the Gallagher stockpile. We've had to amend that. We'll have to do that in 2 parts, but we do have some activity there to report. We have heard back, so that is progressing. It'll just have to be done a little bit differently than our original intent, but the principles are all still the same.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I guess I had a couple, if you indulge me. Wondered where we are with the road ban discussion for those who are landlocked on some of our light pavement. Just, was there sort of a timeline when we might expect to see something there?
Our Director of Infrastructure and myself have had a brief conversation on that, but it is one that we need to return to.
Okay. All right. And the other one would be in regards to the recycling conversation that we had, and I am getting an increased volume of calls as people are visiting the Three Hills Recycle Depot and getting told that it's closing. And so I'm just wondering, do we have any idea where we're at on that conversation? Mr. Zier, welcome.
Morning, Council. Through your question, Deputy Reeve King, we have been in contact with Three Hills, as well as acquiring a lot of information as far for alternative methods to supply recycling. Actually, we do have a meeting set up with Three Hills tomorrow to just go through some more options based on what they have provided in the past and seeing how we would be able to supply that for the county as well.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the update. Any other questions? If not, what's the wish of council? Councillor McGee.
I move that we receive for information the action list as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to receive the council follow-up action list as presented. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimous. And just going back to an earlier conversation with Councillor McGee and regarding the CAPE conference, I believe is it in our policies that states if you're an active member on that committee that we cover conferences? Is that correct or not? So I don't think that there's a need for you to request that of council. If you choose and it's within the policy, I think you're good.
Well, thank you. I wanted to be sure since they already do that as a group themselves, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only comment is next time get your hand up quicker, right?
All right.
It's a budget thing. No. Okay. I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. So there are no closed session items, so it'll be my motion to adjourn at 11:04. Are we, just wait till we're